As a sociologist, I'm really comfortable generalizing about white people.
So were you serious in your text message?
Which?
The semantics was an example of white fragility.
Oh, I got that from the book, I thought.
Oh, I know, but do you believe it?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think that some people use semantics to dodge the question of their own complicity, and I use that word without the criminal connotation that you sent me in that definition. I just mean...
Right. I mean, I just sent you the definition, and by doing that, you believed that I was trying to dodge the question of inequity, is what you said. But that's not what I was doing. I was just saying I'm not doing anything wrong by existing. That's really what I was saying. And according to her, it's just impossible to exist in that space. You are doing something wrong by having white melanin.
So dominant culture asks if I'm racist. And I want to change that question to how have I been shaped by the forces of racism? How is racism manifesting in my life? Because it circulates 24/7, 365. None of us can be and none of us were exempt from its forces. And so I can ask myself, how did all the things I see as unique about me set me up into the overall racist structure? Because it did.
And the only thing that you can actually do is strive to be less white.
Huh.
Which I find
I don't know if
absolutely
I got
hilarious.
That.
That's her end goal. She says, it's basically the original sin. This is, again, comes back to my proposition that this is a religion. And she feels very guilty about it. I think the whole thing is insulting not just to whites, but it's insulting to blacks or people of other skin colors, because it just assumes so much. And what I find even more hilarious, I think, is toward the end, where she talks about the white savior complex and how people try to step in and be white saviors to people of color. That's exactly what she's doing in the book. That's exactly what she's doing. She's being this white savior where she assumes all black people think the same way about this issue, and she wants everyone to, I mean, honestly, I think she's a hack. I think she just wants to make money, and I don't find her as sincere like I find Ta-Nehisi Coates or somebody else. I just don't buy it.
In fact, if you are white and you have not devoted years of sustained study, struggle, and focus on this topic, your opinions are necessarily very limited. Now, how can I say that when I don't know most of the people in this room? And this, of course, is the first thing that tends to trigger white fragility, generalizing about white people. White people in North America live in a society that is deeply separate and unequal by race, and white people are the beneficiaries of that separation and inequality. As a result, we are insulated from racial stress at the same time that we come to feel entitled to and deserving of our advantage.
White people writ large have a history of putting their own advantage ahead of the lives of people around them. And historically, like as a colonizer, yeah. Like, isn't that what a colony is?
Consists of white people taking advantage of other people.
Kind of. Yeah.
Sorry, but really?
Well, I mean, do you disagree?
I think that's pretty broad. And maybe this is a slight tangent, but I think it'll illustrate a point, which is slavery was ubiquitous. It didn't just exist in the United States. More quote-unquote white Europeans were enslaved in North Africa. This is Thomas Sowell, a black economist. This is where I learned this. It was ubiquitous. This is not a white phenomenon.
Okay, but in America it is. And I think we as, in 2020 as Americans, when we look at American history and we think of white and black, we think of slave owners and slaves.
Some people think that.
I think most people would think that.
I think more and more people are. I mean, tearing down the statue of George Washington because he was a slave owner is an example of that, rather than a founding father.
But so that's where we are right now as a culture, is like we're just really grappling with that history, and it's kind of at the top of everybody's mind. So the book White Fragility is like a lens that you can view that position through, like that position in history that we're in right now. Is it the best one? I don't think so. Is it a good one? I don't even know. Even a particularly useful one.
And it's actually incredibly liberating and transformative to start from the premise that, of course, I've internalized all of this, and then I can stop defending, deflecting, denying, hoping you won't notice, minimizing, explaining, and I can just let go of that and get to work. We make it so miserable for people of color to talk to us about our inevitable and often unaware racist patterns.
Why is it hard for white people to talk about racism? And so why is it hard for me to talk about racism? Mostly because I don't understand what it means to be on the other side of it.
I agree with that. I think it's great to inhabit other perspectives. That book didn't cause me to look at myself in the way that it caused you to look at yourself.
Okay.
And so you said something to the effect of, am I benefiting in some way because of the color of my skin? Or are there systems set up that benefit people like me? And I just start to wonder, if that's true, which in 2020, I'm not totally convinced that it's true across the board. Should I personally feel like I need to do something about that?
The question of guilt comes in what am I doing about that?
And I don't know. If there's some way I can help people, absolutely. I want to help people. I care about people. But like you said, should it have a racial slant or a racial lens? I think the more that we focus on race, the more problematic our relationships become.
First of all, we're already divided by race. And focusing on race is not what did it. I would say not focusing on race, refusing to grapple with how race shapes virtually everything is what keeps us divided.
We move away from the MLK speech.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
And I think that's incredibly important, and it's really useful framing, and I think it still applies, and I think that we're moving away from that, and I don't know that books like White Fragility elevate the conversation in a way that's actually useful.
We need to take the taboo off the discussion of race in school. We have a lot of history. Every country has a lot of history. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the shameful. And it all needs to be exposed. So we need to lift that taboo off and have these discussions at an early age in school, not try to wait to college or something like that.
I fully agree with you that we need to review our past, good, bad, ugly, but I'm curious of what you think of, so people like Robin DiAngelo and others claim things like, all white people are racist, all white people are complicit in racism, every white person is a white supremacist, and this is stuff that's actually taught to children. And I'm curious what you think of that, coming at it from that angle. I don't know how aware of you are of that kind of ideology.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I know who Robin DiAngelo is. I have not read her book. I'm not really, very familiar with her philosophy. But just based upon what you're saying, I would not go along with that. There are a lot of white people who definitely are white supremacists. I know that for a fact because I know them. I sat down with them, talked to them.
My conception of it was definitely that. Was like, man, if I'm racist, I'm a bad person. Like that is not, like, I really failed. So admitting that failure.
I think it should still be that.
Well,
I think expanding the term to be nearly meaningless is really problematic for a lot of reasons. So
so you jumped to nearly meaningless there.
Yeah, because because I mean it. Because when I see people online calling other people racist, I immediately assume that that it's bullshit. When we use that word to describe somebody that's a part of the KKK, somebody that like Daryl Davis would talk to, right? Mm-hmm. You know, that's very clearly racist, but that person's racist and so are you? Like that just seems really weird to me.
Oh, I think this conception of systemic racism allows me to think of racism in those two different ways. You know, it allows me to think of racism as a set of structures and conditions and whatever that have like accumulated over time. That's systemic racism. And it also allows me to think about like a person as racist in the like other sense of the word.
I feel like it just the word loses more meaning. It's hard to differentiate between someone who just happens to be born white, who, yes, our history includes racism, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that our history includes slavery and all of those things. But she adds on this sense of guilt. So it's not just that you've benefited from these things; it's that you've benefited from them, and that is actually kind of bad. There's something wrong with that. She needs to strive to be less white, right? So there is a very negative connotation just to existing as a white person.
To be white in so many ways is to be raised to be functionally illiterate on the topic of race. To be white is to see oneself outside of race, to see oneself as a unique, special individual, exempt from the forces of socialization.
There is a very negative connotation just to existing as a white person. So that's one of the reasons it doesn't help.
It's an attack on your identity. I get it.
It's not really an attack on my identity. I don't give a shit about being white. It's not about
whether or not you care about it. You are.
Sure, but it's not. But an identity is not like I'm a martial artist. This is a part of my identity. I'm a filmmaker. That's identity, at least in the way that I think of it, is like a cognizant awareness and participation.
Those are other parts of your identity.
Yeah, but being white is not a part of my identity.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Because I don't care what anyone else's color is.
Okay.
So that's what I mean when I say it's not it's not something.
But deep down, can you really like not have that be part of your identity?
You know, just because I say I am or want to be, I could be exempt from these forces. So that is another challenge.
Deep down, in a personal sense, I would say yes, that's possible. So again, this it brings us away from MLK and towards focusing more and more on race. Frankly, I assume that this kid up here, he's skateboarding. I assume he has a very similar experience to me. This is life. Like, he's fucking skateboarding around. He's listening to music. It's great.
Yep.
You know? So no, I just the more and more that we focus on identity, racial identity, I think that's super problematic.